Okay, let's look at the case study for Java Jam for Chapter 9. This begins on page 440 in your book. The first step, it tells you to copy those files over, but I have already done that for you per usual. Let's look at task 2, where it says to configure the CSS. So we are going to create a form for the jobs page. We don't yet have a jobs page, but we're going to create basically a little job application form in that page. But we're going to configure the CSS for it first. So let's go to our CSS. And I've already typed this for you. I thought I'd just go ahead and have it typed in so I can just talk while you look at the code. Task 1 says to create a form element selector with style declarations that sets padding to 2em. So we've done that here. Step 2 says configure a label element selector to float left and with block display. So that's display block. Set the text alignment to right. So we use text align right. Assign a width of 8em, so we did width 8em, and set 1em of right padding, so we used padding-right 1em. Task 3 says configure the input element and text area element selectors with block display and 1em of bottom margin. So since we have two selectors here, we can separate those with a comma, and this will apply the rules to both selectors. And we have display block and margin bottom of 1em. The last step of our CSS, configure a selector for an ID named mySubmit that sets the left margin to 9.5em. Okay, save that. This is not going to do anything now in our browser because we don't yet have any of these elements on our page. So let's open up menu, and this is going to be the starting point for our jobs page. Let's do a file save as on menu, save it in our Java Jam folder, and we are going to change the name to jobs. Task 3 says use the menu page as a starting point, which we did. Save the file as jobs, which we did. And we are going to create a job application form. 1, change the page title to an appropriate phrase. So now it says menu. We want it to say jobs. 2, the jobs page will contain an H2, a paragraph, and a form in the main element. Delete the div within the main element. Delete the table in the main element. So we'll delete this div. Not that main, just that div. And we'll delete the table from table tag to table tag. Step 4 says code the HTML for the form area. Begin with a form element that uses the post method and action attribute to invoke server-side processing. And then it gives us a link that we can use for our action attribute. So we want, oh no, I skipped a step. I skipped step 3. I'm not re-recording. Step 3 says edit the text within the H2 to say jobs at Java Jam. And replace the text in the paragraph with want to work at Java Jam. Fill out the form below to start your application. Now, here's where we add the form in step 4. So we'll use the form tag. It says for the method, we are using post. And for the action, it gives us a web address, http://webdevbasics.net scripts Java Jam 8. Okay, if you want to see that printed out, look in the book on page 441, step 4. Step 5 says configure the form control for the name information. Create a label element that contains the text name. Create a text box named my name and use the for attribute to associate the label element with the form control. Now, even though in all the tutorials I did this the shortcut way just because it was easier, for this project specifically, we do need to use the for just to help our CSS look right. So we're going to say label for, and this box will eventually have the name of my name. And we want to say name. And then after that label closes, that's where we'll have our input type equals text. We need to give it a name of the same thing that's here. So my name. And we'll say the same for the ID. Let's see how we're looking so far. So if I click on the link, all right, we're getting somewhere. Let's keep going. Step 6 says configure the form control for the email information. Create a label element that contains the text email. Create a text box named my email. Use the for attribute to associate the label element with the form control. So basically the same process. We'll do my email. After the label closes, we'll start our input. I'll do type equals email since we learned that in the last tutorial. Step 7 says configure the experience area on the form. Create a label element that contains the text experience. Create a text area element named my experience with rows set to 2 and columns set to 20. Again, we need to use the label for, and eventually this will be named my experience. Remember, text area boxes, let me make sure, yeah, it says experience. Text area boxes do not start with an input, they start with a text area. So let's do, I'm going to break this down to the next line. Let's go ahead and give it a name of my experience because this needs to match this. I'll do ID my experience. And it said rows 2, columns 20. And then you just close the text area there. Step 8, configure the submit button. Code an input element with type equals submit, a value of apply now, and assign the input element to an ID named my submit. So input type equals submit. Our ID will be my submit. We've already coded some CSS for that. And the value is apply now. And we could do a name of my submit as well. Again, these attributes, it doesn't really matter what order they're in. So, you know, I've always done names first, but I did ID first, that's fine. Okay, then we have our closing form tag. So let's see if we've got a form. I'll refresh, and we do. And it should work if we click apply now. Then it did go to that link for processing. To get some more practice, we are going to make required fields. And this is something that I didn't go over in the tutorial, but this will mean that a field cannot be submitted until they complete or put something in that particular control. So task 4 says add the following sentence to the paragraph above the form. So in this paragraph above the form, we're going to type required fields are marked with an asterisk. And an asterisk is Shift and 8 on the keyboard. And we'll show them what that asterisk looks like in case they forget. So use the required attribute to require name, email, and experience form controls to be entered. Add an asterisk at the beginning of each label text. Okay, so in our label text, this is what appears on our screen. So let's put an asterisk there, an asterisk there. We might want to put a space just to help it look a little better. Okay, so if I refresh, now we have those asterisks, and we want those to be required. So to make them required, you just add another attribute to these controls. So for the type equals text, I'll do required equals required. Okay. For the email, I'll do required equals required. And for the text area, required equals required. Now the browser is not going to allow us to hit that submit button until the user enters something in those now. So if we refresh here and we click apply now, it's saying please fill out this field. Well, I'll put gibberish there, please fill out this field. Well, I'll put gibberish there, no, I have to have that email address like we looked at in the last tutorial. There's wrong. Okay, and now if I try to apply, nope, gotta fill that out as well. And it works. Okay, not too bad. So you guys will do Fish Creek and Pacific Trails on your own. Let me know if you have questions.